Welcome to the Taryn Reeves Show, the podcast for elite entrepreneurs, visionary leaders, and high-impact CEOs who are ready to grow their brand, amplify their message, and build a legacy. I'm your host, Taryn Reeves, multiple international best-selling author, publishing strategist, and founder of Automatic Authority Publishing and Press House. Each week, we dive into powerful conversations with trailblazing entrepreneurs and changemakers who are using storytelling to scale their business and impact. So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and get ready for a dose of inspiration, strategy, and the truth behind what it really takes to turn your wisdom into wealth. Today, I'm joined by Hugh Massey, who is the executive chairman and founder of DNA Behaviour International, the behavior and money insights company. As a Titan 100 CEO and widely recognized behavioral AI solutions architect, Hugh Massey approaches every opportunity and challenge from the proven perspective that behavior makes money. By applying exponential thinking and AI-driven technologies, Hugh helps growth-minded leaders create an exponential future by building category-king, people-centric businesses, enhancing financial decision-making, culture, and performance. Hugh, welcome to the Taryn Reeves Show.
Great to be with you, Taryn.
It's amazing to have you here. Now, we have had such an interesting conversation off camera, and you've led an extraordinary career, and it intersects finance, behavior, technology. I'm wondering if you can take us back and speak about your experiences or turning points that really shaped the leader that you are today.
Yeah, it's great to share on this, and there's a dimension that I'm going to share today that I haven't always shared when I get asked this question, and because the drive to become an entrepreneur really starts very early in your life, and
definitely.
I saw it from my mother, and she was an entrepreneur, forced into that situation because my dad died when I was one, but she, is she at 94 still today a great businesswoman and still makes smart decisions.
I love that.
And she always said to me, Hugh, you should be an entrepreneur one day. But like all things, with a very traditional, I had more of a traditional English upbringing because my mother is English, even though I was in Australia. 40 years ago, you went to high school or whatever school, prep school, and you're supposed to go and do a degree in something and then go into the profession. So I went into accountancy and did that and found my way through to being a tax specialist at Arthur Andersen and loved it for most of that time. But I was always dabbling in a deal on the side, and in a couple of cases, my mother helped me do it or facilitated it, so that I was always the one taking the risks, but she enabled things to happen so that I could do it financially as well, by sort of, suppose, being backup support. But and then I got to a point where I could get promoted at Arthur Andersen, or I could leave. I suppose that's what I put in my mind, and varying things were going on there that I just didn't see a life for Hugh. And I thought, I'm 30. If I'm going to be an entrepreneur, I need to go now. And I think my mother said, you're 5 years late. You should have done this earlier. But that doesn't matter. Life, can't be ruled by age. And I set up a wealth management business, a family office business, and that flourished, but I was not happy inside that. And one day somebody asked me, Hugh, what are you passionate about? And this was at a Saturday morning breakfast, probably just like what we're doing now, Taryn. And I just, from my subconscious came, I want to help people all over the world become financially self-empowered. And I had no idea what that meant.
Yep.
But I knew enough that from my own growth journey that had been going on for the prior 4 or 5 years, if I'm saying that, and that's just new, I need to go and reflect on it. And I then reflect on it. And what I realized was this was about human behavior. And hey, presto, I look into my day journal that I've been writing for a few years, and there's all these notes about human behavior. And so that then got me to think, okay, how can I build a system? Luckily, I actually had a person working in the office who was doing accounting work for me, but actually she had done psychology.
Mm.
And so and she was at university, and so I said to her, Marta, why don't you, go and research all this stuff for me? And she started to do it, and I would go through all the research notes, and I was constructing my theories. And I came up with that, what I could see with the clients was that people behave differently under pressure. And usually it was because of money pressure.
Mm.
And then I had a chance meeting with a psychologist, and she said, Hugh, this is people's natural instinctive behavior. It takes over when they're under pressure, and it's formed from early in life. And that was the bingo moment. And I just said to her, Carol, can you help me build a system to measure this? And she said, yes, I can. And we started building a system. And then I said, look, there needs to be a psychometric measurement part to it. She said, you need to meet these guys in America who are in Atlanta. And I flew over from Sydney to Atlanta 40 times in 4 years.
Wow.
To scientifically validate a system and build and then really from that, I never went back. I mean, of course, I've come back to Australia a lot of times because of other business interests, and I had the wealth management business I had to manage and then sell off. But that they're the big turning points in there. And in the end of the day, it really comes down to my passion, drive, the purpose, and this came back to a boy. I was meditating, sitting on the floor in my bedroom, my home in Sydney, and I was there reflecting and through the meditation, and I came back to my boyhood dreams that I always wanted a global business. And I thought, yeah, I cannot do wealth management globally, but I can do human behavior. And I've got this differentiated theory about how people deal with money. Today, we know it as behavioral economics. At that time, that was very, very early. Yes, a year after I had built our system, somebody by the name of Daniel Kahneman won a Nobel Prize for a behavioral economics theory. And he's written books about the stuff from research about the sort of stuff that we actually measure. So that tells you there's something there, and it's very deep, Taryn, and I've had to stay with the journey, because if you believe in your purpose, you got to stay with it.
Yep. I couldn't agree more. And that right there is the very essence of entrepreneurship, isn't it? I always say to people, being an entrepreneur is only for crazy people. And I honestly do think you're either born with it or you're not. You're born with that drive. You're born with that, I don't know, innate desire to have a global business, have a small business, whatever that success looks like to you. But it is like getting punched in the face again and again, and we somehow keep coming back for more.
Well, you need to be, whatever you're doing, you need to be very resilient.
Yes.
Because there's many, you can embark on the journey. You could leave a job, you can embark on the journey, you can invest money, you can have your whole family behind you. You might even have a wife and kids, or it's if you're a male or a partner, whatever way around you want to go on that. And anything can happen. You can have a sick child, which, I've had a child with some, some problems. A million things can hit you on the way that you've got to be able to deal with. And there's going to be business things that come your way, and you've got to be able to adapt and shake it off and move to the next thing.
Yep, that's right. Now let's jump into behavioral economics. And I'm really curious about this because the way that society is set up means that money is really such a integral part of the ecosystem of a human's life. You can't get away from it the way that society is set up. And thinking about it, back in caveman times or whatever it was, we used to barter. Okay. Instead of exchanging stuff printed on paper that the bank says is worth X amount, we used to barter. I'll give you corn if you give me milk, etc. I'm wondering, in your studies, have you looked back that far and seen any changes in human behavior when it comes to exchanging either services, items, money between each other, and what that looks like then versus now?
That's a really interesting question. No one's ever asked me that. And being honest, I haven't gone back and done specific research like that.
Mm,
But I have, in terms of a study by myself to come and come up with a conclusion on it, have I done reading about that?
mm,
Yes. And risk taking, for example, has always been there. Um, the pressure that money causes mentally has always been there, because at the end of the day, what is money? Money is what you think it is, right? And having a dollar bill as a medium of exchange, or having food, is no different.
yeah.
And so the pressure has been there. I think the only difference is that probably that there's more and more pressure has come because of the society we're in and the way in which people measure themselves
Mm,
around money, and there's more of it, and there's more have-nots. But the fundamental issue, does money or a medium of exchange cause pressure, which leads to stress? That's been there since Adam was a boy.
mm. Yeah, it's so interesting. I'm wondering then, with the rise of social media and everyone comparing themselves to this successful lifestyle and also marketing, we're told
Yeah.
that you're only valuable to society. This is the underlying, obviously, subconscious marketing message. They don't go right out and say it, but like you're only successful if you've got the latest car or the latest
Yeah.
TV or the new phone. And like Apple, I think, is a very, very smart business model, but it drives me crazy, the consumerism that it causes, because your phone, it's like you've got to have the next update. You've got to have the next update. The
Yeah.
latest phone's coming out. I'm like, what's wrong with the old phone? It still does the same thing. But
Yeah.
I'm wondering if in your behavioral studies or experience, you've seen an increase in the pressure that money is now causing on people, as opposed to how it used to be when we didn't have access to social media.
Oh, I think absolutely it is. And what you're talking about is subtle pressures.
Yeah,
Um,
it is.
in some ways, I suppose it's a different expense line in the budget than what was there 30 years ago,
Yeah.
certainly 25, 30 years ago, because you have to invest in technology now. Otherwise, you can't survive. I mean, your life
Mhm.
is dependent on it. Even my 94-year-old mother, who didn't grow up with any of it, has got to be able to use a phone, computer, technology gadgets around her neck for security and health reasons and whatever else. And
Mhm.
if you don't invest in it, you're excluded from life. But I think that but also the social media makes everybody's lives so much more visible, and this person's doing that, and that person's doing that. This person's showing off with this car. This person's living in this home or doing this wonderful trip. And you see a lot of the good stuff, probably not all the other stresses and pressures that are going on.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
and I think so it is problematic, and people are judging. And the real issue that we're getting to, Taryn, is that money causes a lot of mental health issues,
Mhm.
and because people are comparing themselves to others, and and so much in society, the media is idolizing, particularly in the United States, but I think it's everywhere, idolizing people who have got a lot of money.
Mm.
But a lot of the time, they're miserable internally, and many of them behave in a miserable way, right?
Yeah.
And the extra misery comes when you start comparing yourself to John Smith next door. Well, he's got ABCD, and his business grew at X rate per year. What am I doing? And I mustn't be very good.
Mm.
That's a big problem.
Yeah.
For entrepreneurs, it's a huge problem.
Mm. I'm going to get a little bit controversial here, as I like to do. But I'm curious because I'm a woman, obviously.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
I have kids. I'm a mum. I have
yeah,
a daughter who's 8 and a son who is 1
yeah,
at the time of recording this. And I know that I get quite stressed out, if you like, watching all of my male counterparts in their businesses and how they are able to do like a 10, 12-hour day completely undisturbed, get all their stuff done. Whereas a woman has different expectations from society and subconsciously from herself
yeah,
about she has to also do the cooking and the cleaning and the school pickups and the drop-offs and the organizing of the dentist appointments and all of those sorts of things, which means that we often don't get that amount of time in our business,
yeah,
which unfortunately, depending on the stage of business that you're at, means that it grows a lot slower than often our male counterparts. Do you, in your studies, have you seen a difference between men and women in how those stresses play out?
I haven't studied that dimension in a specific way, and going and asking questions and doing measurements. Have
Mm,
I observed it? Yes, because I was in entrepreneurs organization for 24 years, well, nearly 25 years, but 24 years. And so there's 19,000 businesses run by men and women who are a founder of a business or the controlling stakeholder, and a growing number now, luckily, are women. At least 25% of women, but they might tell the story that 25% make the threshold revenue levels and things that are required, and have got the free time or the extra time to do all the extra activities.
mm,
And then the rest are, male. So that probably tells you something that, and some of the, I would say that, but, the, if we went more granular, who's got the bigger businesses,
mm,
it probably tends to be the men, um, less than the women, because of the reasons that you're talking about, perhaps.
mm.
Financing,
Yes.
again, a lot of the venture capitalists and whatnot won't provide the money to the women. I'm not saying, don't hear me as saying any of this is not right, uh,
Yes.
or that any of that's right. It's
But
not.
it's factual, where it is true.
It is factual, but if we then go and look at, can the women succeed, to put that on the side as much as a man? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, but also, to what degree do you want to,
Mm,
as well, right?
mm,
Because there is a lot of stress associated with it, right? And
that's
and you know, how much do you want to go through? I think, and there are some women that are great at it, and they've got their husband or their male partner, um, is taking more of the load on the home front. That allows things to happen. There's certainly plenty of that with female executives. Um, but I think it's challenging.
mm,
Uh, it's very challenging to do. My mother had to balance that part out too, manage that part.
yeah. In your experience, do you think that men and women have a different stress threshold when it comes to economics?
Um, I think that women, from what we've seen, at a foundational level, no, but
Mhm.
women perhaps will be a little bit more cautious.
Yeah.
Um, will probably less likely go to the edge on risk taking,
Mm,
and that's measured up in our natural DNA behavior. We can
absolutely.
see a variance there, but it's not saying that a woman can't go out on the edge, or some don't.
Mm,
Some won't. but the propensity probably is a little bit less.
You only have to look at, like I said, I've got both a daughter and a son, and you only have to look at them even at the age of 1, and the behavior is completely different. Everyone says, "Oh, what's it like to have, a boy and a girl?" And I was like, "Well, the boys are harder to keep alive. Honestly, they have no sense. Like at the age of 1, he has no sense of self-preservation. He will just climb, jump, run over things." you know. And when Autumn, my daughter, was that age, very, very different behavior, a lot more slower, like in doing things, not learning or anything, but in actually like moving around and
Yeah.
assessing risk and danger. And it's part of our DNA. I do think that that's true.
I think it's part. It's in the DNA, but my daughter, I would expect, and she's 14, and my son's 12, so a little bit ahead of you. But
Hmm.
my son he's the younger one, is far more cautious.
Interesting. So birth
Yeah.
order has something to do with it.
Um, People put a lot on birth order, but I haven't seen a consistent pattern, and
Okay.
to me, you either are or you're not.
Mm,
And my daughter would take more risks than my son.
interesting.
Now she might be more calculated about it. But he is extremely cautious.
Mm, okay. So,
So I think that it just depends on in a little bit, just depends on nature and how it happens.
mm,
And because I've seen families where the oldest child in my family, between me and my brother, we're 15 months apart. I'm clearly the risk taker.
mm,
But in other families, I know that it's the youngest one is the risk taker.
mm. So
Um,
you're born with it or you're not, do you think?
you're born with it or you're not born with it.
Mm,
Um, can you adapt yourself to do it? Yes, but probably not completely, and not for sustained periods. I think that when it's going against the natural grain, that's where the stress comes up at some point. So you could be cautious and you take risks for 5-10 years, but you're going to get very tired, and there's going to be a point where you're just going to switch off from that.
mm,
Um, but instinctively, you are what you are through your life. That's what it is. Now you can also learn to, um, if you're a risk taker, you can learn to tone it down, because you might have
yeah.
to keep your family safe, or not to always be jumping off cliffs and things. But because it does show up differently too, and yeah. So, but I'm more of a believer. You're either you got it or you haven't got it, and a lot of this is, and you sort of gets into the DNA behavior piece,
Mm,
is, Taryn, that you the genetics is probably 20% of the picture.
yeah.
What you get at conception, if you want to get technical, and then it's 80% is the environment between conception and 3 years old. It's
Mm,
85%. So let's say that 20% is genetics, and then the next 65%. Now, the scientists would say you can't tie it down to a number, but there's a lot of research studies around this, and that all, from different institutions that corroborate themselves. We've done it. And so if you sort of just take those percentages to keep it simple, that's what it is. So you can look at your two children at 1 and 7 have had some different life experiences
absolutely. Yeah.
in that time. There's a 7-year gap for yours. There's a
Mm,
18-month gap for my two children, and me and my brother 15 months. But in the 15-month gap between me and my brother, my father was diagnosed with a terminal brain tumor.
so completely different experience for you.
Right before the birth of, straight after birth, essentially for me, we're within, 3 or 4 months, and for my mother's whole pregnancy with my brother, virtually. And then afterwards, the impacts.
Mm,
Now, that's not, again, I don't want anyone to start crying for me, because I'm not. It is what it is. but there's an environmental impact that's very different.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that causes some of these different behaviors. That's why birth order could be important in the sense that, yes, for my brother was in a more nurtured environment as opposed to me,
Mm.
but it's not birth order per se. It's the environment that's gone on. That's the
And
relevant thing to look at.
the
Yeah.
parent is different,
Yeah.
between births as well.
Yeah.
I was listening to a very interesting podcast about exactly this on the Mel Robbins podcast 2 days ago. It's so interesting.
Yeah. And it is, and you can, while you could say at 3 years old or 2 years old, whatever, you're not doing financial transactions. You're not out there bartering and,
Mm.
selling a deal as such, although,
You're doing
that
emotional transactions though.
you are. You are, and your life perspectives are being shaped.
Mm.
And that's what drives how you deal with money.
Mm.
And that's the subtle point here, is that once you understand how someone's wired from a DNA behavior perspective, what the life perspectives are, the money perspectives and attitudes follow suit,
Mm.
subject to there being some major event that comes along later that changes your belief systems about it. But your belief system can be changed.
Yeah.
The DNA behavior part's harder to change. That you always come back to that, and your life builds on that. Right?
Mm.
That's the
Mm.
that's the thing. And so for me, I believe in helping people get in touch with that and understand that natural behavior and the role it's playing, and then you can align yourself and optimize.
Mm. And I'm assuming that this is where this statement that you make comes from, that behavior makes money. Let's unpack that. What does that look like if a leader's financial behavior influences their entire organization, or even a solopreneur,
Yeah.
or just a person in general? Behavior makes money. Let's talk
So
about it.
early on when I was first started doing this work, back in 2001, I suppose, when we launched a system, I was always very scared of a statement like that. And we were, to give you some background and context, a lot of our clients at the time and the work we did was with investors.
Mm.
And that's where the business started. But today it's a lot more with leaders. And last year we did a research study of all of the S&P 500 companies, and we were able to measure them using our digital scan technology, AI technology, and we can maybe discuss that,
Definitely.
soon. But deploying that, so we got a behavioral style on every leadership team of the Fortune 500 companies, and we could see that with 6 behaviors, if they got stronger across their team or in the overall team, the profits were higher than their competitors. And
Interesting.
so if you've got the right team construct with the right financial value creation capabilities, essentially the right financial mindset, if you want to call it that, in the team mix, your profits are going to be higher, right? That's what it measures out to.
Yeah.
And so that's why I say behavior makes money, because in those successful businesses, they've been able to get the right team construct and if you want to call it, deploy themselves in the right way to grow their companies. Now, their attitudes to money and how they handle money, starting off with the CEO, filters all the way down through the culture. If the leader is a spender, there will be a spending culture inside the company. If the leader is a tightwad with money, to be more Australian with the term, then it's likely to be ruthless
Mm.
inside the company, around expense controls. And we'll think about what that does to the culture. So fiscal control is important. It's one of the behaviors, but it's got to be balanced against how does that impact the relationship culture inside the business, because that needs to be high enough for the business to work. If a business is only about money, it will fail.
Yeah.
But you've got to have that raw material in the mindset, but then it's got to balance out with culture.
That's so interesting. So essentially, you are saying that your studies and your AI technology can allow organizations to build their leadership team, their executive teams, with all of the necessary behaviors and
Yeah,
approaches to money to allow them to have maximum profits.
absolutely.
That's amazing.
And I can pinpoint which companies will succeed or fail right now, and so therefore it's the importance of this is that it can provide a leading indicator of what might happen in the future.
That's amazing.
And
So
and
you
and
said,
that's what's important to investors to understand, for example,
yes.
right? And for the leadership teams to understand as well to get it right.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So you mentioned fiscal control as one of the behaviors. What other types of behaviors do you assess?
So one is, so if we break it down, there's the overall results drive. So the drive for profits, if you want to call it that, which is then, the opposite to that, not complete opposite, but it's sort of, it comes with opposite traits, is the relationship engagement. So how do you engage your employees? How do you build a culture? So that's something that's important. And then we look at the financial value creation capabilities, and there are four of them there. That one is, this is the strongest one, is the financial goal drive. So the ability to build a sales pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
But in today's world, a sales pipeline only lasts for so long. A product is only good not for 50 years anymore. With technology, the windows are much shorter. So you have to be able to have what we call innovation focus. So you've got to not only be able to innovate, but invest in innovation.
Mm-hmm.
They're businesses that are good at innovating. They come up with ideas, but they don't back it.
Yeah.
That was the problem with Kodak, Blockbuster, and those types of businesses. Then there's the fiscal control. So how much do you spend innovating? You've got to
Mm-hmm.
be very careful with that. And then the operating expenses. These leaders of these, I don't want to defame companies, but these old guard companies out there that everybody's flying around in private jets and first class and, living high on the hog with expenses and art on the walls.
Mm.
That's no good to anybody, right? And those companies don't work very well in today's environment. And
Mm.
because you've got to be nimble as well. And then the other one is what we call financial prudence, so that the decision making is really built around the culture and the mission of the company, and there are some guardrails there. And that gets to organizational structure. That's a problem for entrepreneurs a lot of the time, that they want to play King Kong in the shop the whole time and don't know how to put that organizational structure in place.
Mm. Yeah.
But it's got to be there. But while you're still doing all the other things, so it's a balance for keeping the entrepreneurial culture, but it's really just keeping the company directed in the right place.
Mm. So to summarize then, what patterns do you see among top performers versus those who struggle?
Yeah, so the top performer is usually very strong on the financial goal drive. They are an innovator,
Mm-hmm.
and they've got enough of that fiscal control. Probably not the maximum, but enough of it to drive their companies. And while those people will not naturally be the relationship engagement or culture builders, they are aware of it and will invest in it.
Mm.
And that will show up in who else is in the team.
Yeah. So do you believe that to a point, people can learn these more successful financial behaviors to a point, and then they will have to hire on or invest in either AI or people in their teams to
Yeah, I
fill
think
the gaps, if you like?
I would put it this way: you may not be able to learn them all to deploy them yourself. Like there's only if you're not an innovator naturally, it's hard to become one. Or if you're not a risk taker, it's hard to become
Mhm.
one on a continuous basis. But if you're aware of what I'm talking about, you can hire the right people.
Yeah.
But it's going to be hard as a CEO if you're not a risk taker enough and prepared to invest in innovation enough and you're responsible at the end of the day for financial results. It's going to be hard to adapt and allow it to be in the business, but that's something that you're going to have to manage. But I will also say that the innovation drive may not and probably should not all sit in the senior executives. They've got to recognize this. There's going to be some what I call innovation nuggets down the line in the business. There could be a 24-year-old in the business that's got a really good idea about what the future product mix should be and is able to create it. And you've got to find a way to bring that person forward. I mean, the head of AI for a business today
Yep. Let's
need
talk
to
about
be a
AI.
much younger person, but managed with experience.
Yeah, AI is all the rage, and I feel like every day we're waking up to a new advancement in the area. And obviously, there are people now being born into an AI existence, if you like. I mean, I remember we still had dial-up internet. I'm 37 at the time of recording. We still had dial-up internet, all of that sort of stuff. But even from then to now, the advancements are mind-blowing.
Yeah.
And so it makes sense that you would say our younger people in the organizations are going to have more open ideas, but managed with experience. How are you using AI-driven technology with DNA behavior? What does that look like?
Yeah, so we've been using AI, as I really think about it, for quite a long time, in the sense that we've built, we've got our core, if you want to call it, psychometric system. People complete a survey. We reduced the time of that now to 10 to 12 minutes, but still it's exactly the same as what it was in 2001. But the way it's done is a whole lot better.
Yep.
And then it's all the tools that come from it and the insights that come from it. So like we've got a dashboard. Once we know someone's profile, we can measure their market mood. How are you reacting, Taryn, to the stock market today? So we've got AI driving that. We've got hundreds of tools sitting inside our system. That's AI that's been built over 20 years. But I think the big AI driver for our business is, and this is back around exponential thinking and how Hugh Massey's brain works, is, I said to my team, we had a goal. I said this at the end of 2023. We had a goal of reaching 100 million profiles completed by 2030. At the time, we were at about 2.5 million, and we knew there were ways to get there. And I said, well, what if we just change this goal instead of reducing it? Because there's a big gap. What if we said we want to have 1 billion people in our database by 2030, the end of 2030? What would we need to do? Didn't take very long to say, well, we need to do something with AI. And we had actually started to build something about 6 or 7 years before, but we never went anywhere with it. And that was really about clients and circumstances. So we dusted off all that work, fine-tuned it. And as of now, we have what's called the AI digital scan, where we're able to have our profile completed without a human having to complete it.
Wow. So
we can, if we know, the person's name and where they're working, so we've basically got an identifier on them. We can go to public data sources, not behind walls in private data sources, and get enough information to construct the profile.
Yeah, wow.
Not as accurate as them doing it. But now, you see, what that does is that lifts the lid on a whole lot of things. That's how I was able to, talking about the leadership work we did. We used AI. We went and found the 5,000 or so leaders of the S&P 500 companies, got all their names, roles, whatever, ran the digital scan through them, and were able to do the profit analysis as well. Could we get that from AI? It's in public documents, and prepared that analysis. And that's like just leaving a computer running and bang, it happens.
That's
And so
crazy.
now with all our clients, what we're doing is because and one of the barriers to our growth had been the friction point of having to get someone to complete a profile, even though it's 10 minutes, right? A lot of our clients were financial planners or are, okay, Hugh, we think it's a great idea. Yeah, we'll profile some clients, and they do it in dribs and drabs. Now I can present them with a dashboard that says, this is all of your prospects, this is all of your clients, and this is how you market to them and how you serve them, and put a tailor-made suit on every one of them. That's always been my goal, is hyper-personalization. Put a tailor-made suit on every human and have them treated the way they should be. And so AI has enabled us to do that. And we've got 50 million people profiled just to do the leadership analysis now, because we've run the numbers over every company out there in public capital markets. We've got databases that we've got access to through clients that want us to do behavioral analysis on the big data they have.
Yep.
So now our numbers, hit in the 400 millions inside a year of us launching this. All right. So is my goal of 1 billion going to be reached? I think so. But partly it's your mindset, it's preparedness to do it, because I think some would say, gee, are you threatening your own business model? Yeah. But if you're not prepared to threaten your own business model, you're going to get wiped out. And I think this is one of the mindsets. It's got to be, this is part of exponential thinking. But I've made a quantum leap. A little bit by accident, some of it. I put myself in the game, but I knew it would come, right? It's just a matter of being in the game and the right things fall into place. But again, you've got to be innovative and prepared to take a risk. But we figured out how this doesn't threaten our core business model, because what we know is 1 in 10 of these people will actually complete the full profile.
Yeah.
Because they're going to have their interest piqued.
Yeah.
And that's the interesting part for this.
Well, my interest is definitely piqued here, and I know that the listeners and viewers of this episode are going to be very, very intrigued. I think it's amazing what you're doing, and so smart. What excites you most about the future that you're really helping to build now? We're talking for individuals, organizations, society, really.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you said society, because I think that's really important with all of this. And, is what I'm doing important? Yes, because I think you've got to believe in humanity and having a human impact. And that's how I measure success, is through that. And I've got my role in it, like you do, Taryn, right? Promoting people and helping people get their voice out there, and writing great books. If you added up one day, the people that you've helped author books may impact 1 billion people, right, or more.
Absolutely.
That may have happened already, and you don't know it.
One word, if just one word or one sentence changes somebody else's life, job done.
Right. So how you think about that and the metrics, that's where it comes, right? And so, but I think that what's out there is, I'm excited by technology, because without technology, I couldn't do what I'm doing. But if I hadn't have done, if you want to call it my homework over the last 20 years, I wouldn't be able to capitalize on technology. But I knew it would come.
True. And
now it's come. And I think if I tried to invent all this thinking today because suddenly AI showed up, no, wouldn't work. Right? I'd missed the boat by 20 years, right?
Yep.
So you can't, that's it. That's one part of it. I think the other part is that societally, we've got enormous health issues out there, climate issues, environmental issues, political issues, etc. That are problematic. Technology allows those problems to be solved. Getting people educated. People aren't going to, certainly in America, go to university or college the way they used to. They're going to have to work in the gig economy. Jobs aren't going to be the same.
Yep.
And I think the other element is that there's a lot of chaos coming. It started, you can see it coming just from the political environment and what's being done. And there's going to be more. The ramifications we don't know yet. But I think if you're an entrepreneur with a positive mindset, you should be thinking there's something in there for you
Mm.
to do, but stay authentic to your own game, right?
Yeah.
That's you can't change yourself for that, but you can, I suppose, you sort of asked me all of these questions before the session started. What's my sort of superpower as
Yep.
a strength? And I really realized I had it written down, but I realized it at the beginning of this year, and it's my ability to reflect and then
Mm.
know how to capitalize on an opportunity from using my sixth sense.
Yep. Inbuilt intuition. We all have it.
Yeah, and you've got to, for someone who's a bit analytical like I am, in a way, you've got to allow that part to flourish. And for me, it's providing myself with plenty of space to be reflective.
Mm.
And I sometimes do that through exercise, walking my dog, sitting on the floor. There's numerous touch points, but some people say, "Well, gee, that's a waste of time and whatnot." No, it's actually allowing me to be extremely productive
Yes.
and to
Yep. And everyone's
pinpoint.
built differently.
Yeah. And so it's my talent. It's how I help friends. If
Mm.
they tell me a problem, I go away and think about it, and then bang, the solution comes. Right?
Interesting. Yep. Yep. Whereas I couldn't sit still and meditate for more than 3 minutes without losing my mind. I need to do something active.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think everybody has to sit there for an hour.
No.
I think it's if you can quieten yourself for 10 minutes, and I'm not, I can get restless too. It's not easy,
No, it's
but
not.
I think that there's different ways to do it. I like when my son, believe it or not, here in America is playing cricket.
Yep.
I'm in the park. I just go and sit on the side of the field where no one else is, and I'll do it there.
Mm.
There's lots of places to do this, or ways
Yeah.
to do it.
Amazing. Hugh, I think what you're doing is such a gift to the world. Thank you so much for the work that you do. And we have had such an inspiring conversation, but we do need to wrap it up now
Yeah.
because I feel like you and I could talk for so long on so many things. But we have a tradition on the podcast called the Book Drop, where
Yeah.
we want to know what book has impacted you either personally or professionally.
So my number one book, there's a few there, but the number one book is The Power of Identity, written by a guy called Bill Wursmer.
Oh, I
And
have not heard of that one.
yeah, and it's a great book and it's got a lot of tools in it to help you discover your identity, because at the end of the day, when you know your identity, that's going to be the framework through which you make every decision, and in a way holding yourself to account.
Mm.
Who am I? Who do I want to be? How do I want to be seen by the world? And how am I going to hold myself to account to that? Is very important. And your identity does evolve. It's a little, it does come from your talents and values and your purpose, but it's actually, I believe it's higher than your purpose, and it's more reflective of your brand and of your personal brand.
Mm.
And that's what's important. And the book, really strikes a good chord on why it's important, but also how to get there to build that for yourself. And once
How
you've got it and you're clear about it, you're not going to walk away from it.
mm, that's true. Amazing. Hugh, thank you so much for your insights today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Pleasure, Taryn. I've really enjoyed it.
Me too.
Thanks for tuning in to The Taryn Reeve Show. If today's episode lit a fire in you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a story that could transform your business. If you're ready to write the book that positions you as the go-to authority in your industry, visit automaticauthority.com to find out how we can help you make it happen. Until next time, keep owning your story, leading with impact, and building a legacy.